Southwark was the eliminator, and it was a pleasant experience. I met a lot of old friends. Of course, I'd moved to Hereford by that time, and as everybody knows, 12 bell ringing is not a regular feature in Herefordshire, probably because we don't have any 12 bell towers. And I'm not sure how much interest they used to get for judging the eliminators, but anyway, I was very, very pleased to be asked. We went along to Southwark and we judged there, and it wasn't too bad. And then he said, well, how do you fancy coming along to the final? We're actually going to St Paul's, and the competition are going there for the first time. Well, who can refuse? One of my favourite peals of bells. I mean, you turned up, you had to take a pencil and a bit of paper, and that was about it. And so there was no great preparation. It was still fairly laid back. Yeah, we just turned up, met in the crypt, and then were taken upstairs, I think it was Jack Phillips, to some distant part of the roof space in St Paul's. It's always very interesting to be taken to these faraway places that nobody else ever sees. And we seemed to be walking upstairs forever to get to this roof space. In early days, the judges were, how can I put it, extremely well looked after. And Jack had said, I'm going to be the guy who looks after you all day. I'll be at your beck and call, bring you a bit of lunch. Would you like a drink to start off with? Which most of us thought a cup of tea would be very, very nice. And so we said, yeah, sure. And he said, right, I'll go and get some beer. He said, well, okay. It would have been churlish to refuse. So Jack walks all the way down these stairs again, and 20 minutes or so later appears back with a tray with 6 pints on. He carried 6 pints up all the stairs, and he came in looking pretty knackered, I must admit. And we said, blimey, Jack, what are all these? He said, well, I didn't want to walk up after every piece. So he said, I thought that 2 pints each might last you, and I'll bring the same order up as the day goes by, in between the every second team. And we said, what? Good Lord. No, we said, no, Jack, this is very nice, thank you. We'll wait until the end, and we'll just have a cup of tea at lunchtime. And that was how it was. It was very laid back, and, we worked hard. It was probably not until the mid-90s that I thought that things were really starting to tighten up. I remember on one occasion, somebody from one of the prominent teams who hadn't done very well on the day came up to me and said he thought this competition was getting very unfair because the winners were starting to practice too much. I suppose it was then that I started to realise that some people were taking it very seriously. But not only that, the 12 Bell Committee was starting to take it. They were starting to muck around with the strikeometer, and people were coming up with different ideas. You had to be a little bit more precise in what you said on the roundups afterwards when you were giving out the results. But it had to go that way because people were getting keener.
Is there any difference between judging an eliminator and judging a final?
Well, I think so. The first thing is, I think when I was fairly inexperienced judging, I was more worried about being asked to judge a final than I was to judge an eliminator. But it didn't take me very long to realise that whether you were judging an eliminator or the final, it was generally, and I'm not saying all the time, easy to pick out the best team there. And it was generally fairly easy to pick out who hadn't performed the best out of the whole day. Judging the eliminator, again, we suddenly realised that the first and second were usually fairly easy to get, as were the bottom teams. But you're not really judging the first and second. You're judging between 3 and 4, because 3 teams go through to the final.
Of course.
By the time you get down to 3rd and 4th position, the ringing it's not the best ringing of the day. And good ringing is very easy to judge and pick out the faults. Poor ringing is quite difficult to actually judge. And the teams in 3rd and 4th position, it could be a good team having a bad day. It could be an inexperienced team having a wonderful day. Or it could be just 2 teams not too experienced, sort of struggling to get into the final. And that's difficult. Always judging, always finding the 3rd and 4th teams. It makes such a huge difference because one team is out and the other team has gone through to the final, which everybody wants to get into the final. So, no, as time went on, I found the finals far less stressful and the eliminators more stressful as a judge.